Shabbat Shalom, everyone. 1 week ago, I arrived back home after spending 10 or so days with 100 teenagers in Israel. I'm just realizing now that I should probably bench Gomel, not for the travel in Israel, but for spending 10 days with 100 teenagers. But all jokes aside, I was blessed to be in charge of bus number 3, aka Bus Hummus, and truly, sincerely, I miss those young men and women every day. They were, and they are, an exceptional group of teenagers. Incredibly bright, open to new experiences and meeting new people, kind, warm, and very, very funny, even though I didn't understand half of the things they were saying because slang has changed pretty dramatically since I was a teenager. But this morning, rather than offering a traditional Devar Torah, I wanted to share a reflection on those 10 days because I think that there is something really important to be learned here. And I think we need to start figuring out how to talk about it. You see, our teens were given, at least at the beginning of their 3.5 weeks, a pretty standard welcome to Israel experience. We started in the Negev at the Kever of Ben Gurion, overlooking the desert from Sde Boker. And then we traveled to Mitzpeh Ramon, where we filled our days with hikes, with rappelling, with jeep rides, and Bedouin hospitality. And then that theme of the quintessential Israel experience continued when we got to Yerushalayim, and we checked off everything on the list. Shabbat at the Tayelet, archaeological digs, Ir David, the Kotel, Machne Yehuda, and then, of course, Har Herzl and Yad Vashem. Now, part of the Israel experience, and I don't think that it's controversial to say this, is making room for tears. I think tours of Israel are often modeled after that intentional space of Yad Vashem. We start with life, and then we show the darkness and the tragedy, and then end with the hope that comes with the creation of the Jewish state. It's an effective model. It makes a lot of sense. And yet, right now, I think that model could use some tweaking. During those first 10 days of our trip, the teens on my bus had their moments of tears twice, 2 times. And they were intense tears from deep within them. But they weren't at Yad Vashem, and they weren't at the memorial of Har Herzl, where the soldiers who gave their lives for the promise of a Jewish homeland are honored. Their first tears were on Erev Shabbat on the way to the Tayelet for Kabbalat Shabbat, when we told our campers that Roe v. Wade was overturned. The tears came immediately. So did the shouts, the expletives, and the gasps. And our teens' second tears came after Har Herzl, when one of our amazing Israeli counselors shared his personal story about serving in the IDF and losing one of his best friends. Not to sniper fire or an IED, but to suicide. Suicide from despair, from the absence of a sense of purpose, from a constant and merciless battle with mental health. Again, immediate tears, immediate frustration, immediate anger. 2 moments held for tears. And 2 moments where tears were certainly not part of the itinerary. And the cynical response to this is to say that our kids aren't crying when they're supposed to. The tears are supposed to be for the halls of Yad Vashem and the memory of fallen soldiers in combat, not on the bus on the way to Shabbat services, and not after stories of struggles with mental health. That's the cynical response. The compassionate response, the respectful response, the really painful and challenging response is a stark examination of what exactly it is that we have left this generation of young Jews and young people in general. My greatest takeaway from this past trip to my other home is not that we need to rethink our Israel education, our Holocaust education, or the structure of our pedagogy in general. My greatest takeaway is the realization that we have spent so much time and energy telling our youth what they need to believe, what they need to see, what they need to feel, that we have profoundly abdicated our responsibility to let them be part of the conversation, to have them tell us what breaks their hearts, what keeps them up at night, what fills them with concern, with frustration, and yes, with that anger, what motivates them to get out and make a change in this world. Because they're shouting, and we're not listening. Do they love Israel? Yeah. These kids love Israel profoundly. Are they horrified by the Shoah? Yeah. They're horrified by the Shoah. Is that all that matters? No. That's not how we do things as Jews. One of the foundational pillars of who we are, a pillar that has separated us from the other nations of the world, is that we have always been family-oriented to the ultimate degree. I mean, Freud had a field day with us. And by association, I guess he had a field day with himself as being part of that category of the Jewish people. We are a people of Lador Vador, of generation to generation, of Birkat Banim, of this beautiful tradition of blessing our children every Friday night at the Shabbat table. We have parental obligations and responsibilities built in not just to our culture, but proudly and predominantly emphasized within our sacred texts. Judaism at its core is about parenthood, even for those who are not biological parents. This is family in its most tribal sense. We are responsible for one another. And that sense of family, that sense of obligation is so incredibly beautiful. It is one of the things that makes me so incredibly proud to be Jewish. But it also means doing the hard stuff of parenting, of communal and ethno-religious parenting. It means teaching, but also listening. And it means respect. And with that comes the understanding that it isn't realistic for our young people to care about the things we want them to care about if we aren't doing the same in return. If we aren't hearing them when they're telling us that their heart is broken, that they feel abandoned, that they feel like we've forgotten them. And so let me articulate as clearly as I can what our kids told me, what 100 teenagers in Israel told me. They're scared to be young people in this country. They're scared of growing up with less rights than their parents had. They're scared of being shot, of being killed in their classrooms. They're scared of Christian fundamentalism and extremism turning the United States into a theocracy. They're scared of all the danger, of all the hate, of all the divisiveness, of all the pressure, the anxiety, and the addictions that come with our time. And most painfully of all, they're scared of admitting any of it. Because still in our day and age, somehow struggles with mental health are still considered taboo. But they're still saying it. Despite it all, because they're desperate for us to listen. Right now, 100 teenagers from Metro Detroit and Israel are spending their Shabbat on a beach on the shores of the Kinneret. And they're dreaming about what they've been seeing, what they've been experiencing, where they are, and where they're going. They're dreaming in Israel about Israel. In those dreams are the hills of the Galilee, the white stones of Yerushalayim, the sunsets of the Negev. We've given them something so incredibly special, and we should be proud of that. We've given them the experience of the Jewish ancestral home, and they'll remember it forever. But it's not good enough. They need to feel that homeland in their bones, not out of fear or guilt, but out of a sense of the love that created it in the first place. A love that listens, that hears them that is in conversation with them, not to them. That is the dream of Israel. To be heard, to be understood, to be taken seriously, and to be part of something so big and so beautiful that there is never any doubt that it's there to protect, to comfort, and to nurture. That starts here. That starts in our individual families, in our congregational family, and in our Jewish family as a whole. That goes beyond itineraries and hikes and Jeep rides. That starts with us. And that needs to start now. When our teens come back next Friday, I'm going to start inviting them to speak here at Shul. And I hope you'll join me in learning with them and starting those conversations, not just about Israel and not just about their experience in Israel, but about everything that is on their mind. We won't always agree. That also is Jewish tradition. But I am certain that it will be a step towards something important. So please keep your eyes out for those opportunities coming soon. May we continue to grow together as family, and may we continue to dream about where we are and where we're going. Let us say together, Amen, and Shabbat Shalom, and we are going